I'm a big Big Ten basketball watcher. I like to see what the Terps are doing. And years, he's one of our frequent visitors here. Come wintertime, get your coat and your scarf out, I should say. He's running around chasing basketball all week. He's John Crispin. You can find him at BTN, John Crispin, on Twitter. What is up, man? I haven't had you on since, I don't know, like Maryland was in the Big Ten tournament hosting that thing down in D.C., right?
I know. It's good to be relevant again. You know, I mean, you work year-round, but us college basketball guys, we kind of like hibernate in the off-season and have to come back and reestablish ourselves. So I'm kind of dusting off the cobwebs right now, stretching my legs a little bit, getting back into it.
Yeah, Jersey guys going out to the West Coast. Next day you get your feet in the sand. Y'all got to go get a tan, you know, in the off season. But, you know, it's all indoor now, and certainly Big Ten Network. You don't get any of the cushy trips. I mean, you get these places like Chicago and Minnesota and Iowa, kind of the same as Turgeon's guys are going to be. Where do you stand on the Terps? I mean, look, it's very easy to dip our toe in the water here early and say, well, Michigan State, no matter the outcome and these big games they're playing at the beginning of the week, none of that really matters once this thing gets going. I think everyone looks at Michigan State, Purdue, you know, a few other teams, Northwestern, some other teams that look okay. Where's Maryland in all this for you, John?
Well, I've got Maryland as one of my 6 NCAA tournament locks, and that doesn't mean they're a definite top 25 team. It just means that they are a tournament-worthy team based on the personnel that they have right now and the coach that they have in Mark Turgeon. I actually think the team sets up better for Mark Turgeon than he may have, you know, with a guy like Melo Trimble, and even the year before, much more so than the year before. You know, when you had Rasheed Suleiman, they almost had Diamond Stone. They had always too many bodies. Whereas now it's a little bit better balanced. But with Cowan, Herter, and Justin Jackson, those guys, those 3 guys alone, are good enough not only to get this team to the NCAA tournament and make some noise in the Big Ten. I don't think they're a Big Ten championship contender, not with Purdue and Michigan State being as good as they are, and even Minnesota looking as good as they did, you know, earlier in the week against Providence. You know, big win against Providence. That says a lot about how good this conference is. But I still think it's a Maryland team that you're going to see play in March. And those 3 together could win games. It could be really dangerous in March.
You know, year to year, and since we've left the ACC, and, you know, you get your radar up more on this, and clearly a couple of years ago, you know, the whole Melo Trimble era, and I know, you know, at the end, Turgeon said it changed the program, and it certainly did. I mean, I think it put the radar on that, hey, look out for the Terps. But that team 2 years ago, it still is sort of devastating that you get that Diamond Stone kind of kid, you get the Suleiman, you know, they had pieces there that they could have really won a championship. And then there's these other years where they got a lot of nice kids and they got some nice parts. And Fernando coming in, this kid Obi, you know, obviously the local kid here, Morcell. I went over to his press conference over Mount St. Joe a year ago when he was committed. Now this is the new stew, and every year and a half, the thing turns over. A couple kids get injured, weird things happen, kids emerge, other kids fade. But you know, I'm comfortable with this group of players here because I think under Turgeon, guys tend to have gotten better. And I look at Herter and I look at Jackson and I look at Cowan, who played a different kind of role, I think, last year with Trimble in there. But if all of those kids step up a little bit and they get some more help through the recruiting that they've done here, you know, I don't see any reason why they can't win 2022 games, be noisy, and you know, and scare one of these teams, or take down Purdue in a game, or give Michigan State a run. And I know you don't play everybody twice, you don't get that opportunity in the way that maybe you used to. But having, I don't think there's anywhere they're going to step on a floor this year and say, well, they're overmatched, right?
No, not at all. And you also got to remember, Mark Turgeon is not just a coach that looks at his team and puts certain guys in the lineup and says, run this play. He's a developmental coach. So he's teaching these guys how to play. He's teaching them how to get better. And when you look at teams that struggle with chemistry, you're dealing with guys that are not trying to improve. They're trying to get what they need to get and get out. And I think that's what you saw a couple years ago. I mean, even with Rasheed Suleiman, he could have been a great piece, but it was more about him showing everybody what he could do, him showing everybody that he was not a bad guy like he appeared to be when he left Duke. So you have guys now that are going to be around. They're going to improve, not only as basketball players, but as human beings. And that's the type of coach Mark Turgeon is. So I think this team, yes, the pieces are all there, especially with Fernando and Obi down low. I love those 2 guys. It reminds me a lot of some of the young guys that Iowa has. Very active guys that can play that 3, 4, 5 spot. And that's going to make them tough to cover, especially if Tchaikovsky can stay healthy.
He is John Crispin. You can find him out on the Big Ten Network and, of course, at BTN. John Crispin out on Twitter. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by Box Hill Pizzeria. The best crab cakes in Arthur County can now be shipped anywhere. Don't tell John. BoxHillPizzeria.com, the way to do that. It is not a pizzeria. It's more of a crab cakery. Also brought to you by our friends at Fremont Mortgage. We appreciate their sponsorship out of Costas the other night on our big night with C.J. Mosley. Don't make a third-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Choose the right lender. You need Fremont Mortgage at Fremont.com, whether you're buying or selling. And, of course, a big thanks to Carl Delmont and the Harrisburg Heat and his whole group at Fremont for sponsoring our swabbing for There Goes My Hero the other night over at our friends at Costas over on the east side of town. John Crispin joining us here. We're talking all things hoops now that we're getting back on the court. We're the voice of Coppin here. Speaking of shameless plugs, and, of course, Juan Dixon is taking over the Coppin State program.
Yep.
We air their games here, the Lady Eagles as well, and Coach Burrows. So I have them on, and, this is the weird time of the year where I'm talking to Juan the other day, he's in Oregon, and I'm talking to Coach Burrows, he's in Nacogdoches, Texas, and they're headed to Cincinnati or Ohio or Berkeley, and they take all these money games, and to some degree they get their brains beaten in. And I think during, different coaches want to accomplish different things, and there used to be, we're going to fly to Alaska, we're going to go to Hawaii, we're going to go to Puerto Rico, and I know in your era, I'm sure you played a couple of those games back when you were, a star player, and that was part of the recruitment that you would, kid from Jersey, get to go somewhere cool and, allegedly work on your tan maybe for an hour. But, there's also the part where, like, Turgeon's kept this thing much more close to home. We're in the Big Ten. We have to fly out to Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska in the middle of winter and whatever. It really is different, I think, as to how you want to prep your team this time of the year. And I ask Juan every week, like, what are you getting by going out to Oregon? And, you hope that you're better in March, right? Like, literally, everybody just hopes to get better.
Well, you hope that you're better in March if you're Juan Dixon and Coppin State, but you also have to work on your budget. You want to increase your budget so you can bring in better assistants. You want to increase your budget so you can send your assistants and yourself to bigger events. And that is a big deal at those mid-majors. It really is. My brother's a Division III coach, and he does that all the time. He has to look at, golf tournaments to bring more money in to pay his assistants more because he knows how hard they work. So, we don't think of those things at the level we're at in the Big Ten. Now, for Mark Turgeon, you've got to consider the season, the grind of the season, before you consider trying to build this national, global brand that somebody like a Duke is or North Carolina. I mean, these teams are so focused on their national and global brand that you often lose sight of how important it is to win your conference. And I think that's something that Mark Turgeon realized. Hey, we got a really good team, but I have a really good team that's going to be even better next year if we can work on this season to improve. Now, this season, yes, they have the opportunity to make some noise, but they really have more of a championship team the following year. And even though Michigan State's going to be fantastic again, and Purdue's probably really going to be good again, there's an opportunity there if you continue to focus on what you can control and what you can build and not get so global in your thinking and try to get this Maryland basketball brand all over the world. I think the travel really wears on these kids. It really wears them out. And the grind of a Big Ten season wears them out. So kudos to Mark Turgeon for doing what he thinks is right.
Well, and it's tough enough. I mean, they're going to see Syracuse at the end of the month. They're seeing Butler this week. They're going to see Illinois and Purdue sort of back-to-back in this early Big Ten thing in the early part of December as well. So, I don't begrudge the Gardner-Webbs or the Catholics or whatever, and I do like seeing them play UMBC. I like when the locals play the locals. I like seeing a Bucknell kind of game or a UMES game or whatever. But it used to be much more about Big Ten ACC, and we're going to fly here and do this and, play like this week, and I'll throw it right at you. These Duke and Michigan States, and these big teams getting together early. How do you see that as a benefit?
Well, the big teams getting together early, it's a barometer. It's either going to give you confidence or sense of urgency, and hopefully you get both. I mean, that's the goal. If I'm a coach, I want to get both. I want to get my players some confidence playing against some of the best players in the country, best teams in the country, but I also want them to understand that there needs to be a sense of urgency where we are doing more than playing to beat the team that we're about to face the next week. I might be facing, I don't mean to disparage anybody, but I might be facing Rutgers next week. But I need to know where I'm at right now and go, you know what? I'm not just playing against Rutgers. We need to continue to improve every night out so we can beat a team like a Duke. We can beat a team like a Michigan State. We can beat Kansas. So I think it's a great barometer, but you hope that you develop enough confidence It's not like a few years back. Indiana played Duke, and Duke just blasted them in Maui. I mean, it was like a 25, 30-point loss, and that just took the wind out of it.
That's a long plane ride home, man. I mean, that's a confidence killer, right?
It's a confidence killer. So you hope that doesn't happen. But when teams are as competitive and as talented as they are, you look at Duke and Michigan State, it's impossible to imagine a blowout. You have to imagine a really hard-fought, good game between two really talented teams and two of the best coaches ever to coach the game.
He is John Crispin. He's out at Big Ten Network. You'll be seeing him if you're watching the Terps here at any point during the season. He's also out at Crispin Basketball. You can find him at BTN. John Crispin, that's Big Ten Network out, and it's John with no H in there, just Jon. You can find him out on Twitter as well. You talk about the Terps and the rest of this Big Ten. You're going to see Purdue kind of early as well on December 1st. I know they are thought to be an elite team along with Michigan State and Northwestern sneaking into that, and I know they're playing their games, and I know you're calling one of their games at Creighton this week out there at the Rosemont in North Chicago, Illinois. But Purdue's going to be one of the teams I think to watch it, and I think it goes without saying Michigan State's there. But give me some other thoughts about where Indiana is in this rebuild, and where do we find Michigan and Ohio State and Iowa and these other teams in the middle of all of this?
Indiana's probably the biggest question mark of all because they come out and they lose by nearly 30 to Indiana State, which basically, I was wondering if someone was going to set the building on fire because that stuff just doesn't happen at Assembly Hall. It was Archie Miller's, home opener, his debut as head coach, and people start to ask the question: wait a second, why did we get rid of Tom Green? And
by the way, is Larry Bird on Twitter? If he was, I bet he would have had some great troll stuff that night, right?
He would have been all over it. Totally, something tells me he's just sitting there quietly enjoying his success.
Someone in French lick.
I don't think he cares too much. But it was one of those things where you see, we don't know what team's going to show up for Indiana. We don't know if all of a sudden they're going to start to compete and play hard, or if this is just going to be simply a rebuilding year. And that's what it could be. It could just simply be a rebuilding year for Indiana. One of the teams that I like that doesn't look great yet, but I think they're going to look really good as the season goes on is Michigan. They space you out really well. They're a really tough cover, and if you think about Michigan last year, they did not look good at all early in the season in Big Ten play. They lost to Indiana by 30 points. They got blown out of their own gym. They really lost some tough games, and then next thing you know, they start to turn it around with the last 8 to 10 games of Big Ten play. They looked really good. What do? They win the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship. This is a team that will get better and better as the season goes on. So I would watch out for a team like Michigan. I also think Minnesota is going to be competitive, but they lack depth. Northwestern, very competitive, very good, but they lack depth. And that seems to be a recurring theme. Teams that lack depth can really get hurt with one or two injuries down the road. So you just hope everybody can stay healthy.
As far as nationally goes, some thoughts about what else is going on out there, or are you just so immersed here? This is the time of the year where you measure yourself, right? Coppin's measuring itself against the Giants, and you've got Big Ten measuring itself against it. Lots of cross-pollination, and I think lots of global observations are made on that over the next 4 or 5 weeks when the Chaminades of the world take somebody down, right?
Yeah, and look, it's hard. It's hard because you may think a team looks great, and then the very next game, they could look terrible. And that's just the way it goes. Michigan State could go out and they Duke. Everyone's going to be, oh, my God, Michigan State's great. Well, for whatever reason, they may have just matched up well with Duke, or they just attacked the zone because the chances are Duke's going to play a lot of zone. So you can't put too much stock into it. Right now, everyone's talking about, what's the best conference? I'm like, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, by the way, if Indiana's going to lose to the likes of Indiana State every night, imagine what Louisville and Duke are going to do them in a couple weeks, right?
I know. Oh, they have a brutal schedule coming up, and that's another one where maybe it takes winning one of those games to really get yourself a little confidence to stop playing so fearfully, because that seems to be what it is. They're also very young. It's again new system. You have the experienced players that are there. They're used to playing a Tom Crean style of basketball. It's completely different, for better or for worse. It's completely different. So. It's just going to be interesting to see how this plays out. You still have your big boys, your Kansas, your Duke, your Michigan State. Obviously, those teams are always going to be there. I think what's going to be interesting to see is how do some of these conferences stack up as the way they have in the past? How does the Big East stack up the way it has in the past? Is it competitive from top to bottom? We have the Gavitt games against the Big Ten, which is the Big East versus the Big Ten. That's a great way to kind of gauge where these teams are at the moment. Now, it doesn't mean that's how it's going to be at the end of the season. So you just have to watch the season play out. Most teams in the Big Ten are not who they're going to be in February and March. So you just kind of have to let it play out. But the big boys are still there, still top heavy. But there is enough parity that anyone can beat anybody in this game. It's not like the women's game where you saw, UConn beat Stanford, who's the 10th ranked team in the country, by like 40 points the other night. It was unbelievable to watch that. But there's much more parity in the men's game because of the amount of talent and athleticism. I think the athleticism is kind of the great equalizer in many ways, where you have certain guys that can just go out and get 30 points, and if they have a hot night, they can beat anyone.
No, if you're shooting well, right? I mean, especially when you're a Coppin State taking on Cincinnati or whatever, you shoot well, you stay in the game. You don't, right?
Absolutely. It is mismake basketball, too.
Here's John Crispin joining us here, as he does from time to time. Last thing for you, man. Dude, I have not had you on since the FBI started pulling out badges on people and all hell is broken loose. Anything you want to say on that? I mean, we haven't talked about it in 4 months.
Well, look, the bottom line is anyone who acts surprised by this is foolish. I heard a lot of guys out there say, I'm just disappointed and a bit shocked. And I'm like, get out of town. You've been covering this game for 35 years. This goes back to Sam Gilbert back at UCLA and John Wooden, that's basically blasphemous. Look, I was a UCLA guy. I got my degree from UCLA. I finished my last couple of years of eligibility at UCLA. And heaven forbid you say anything about John Wooden. Look, he was the greatest coach to ever coach this game. He's the best basketball teacher to ever coach this game. But Sam Gilbert, and if you don't know about Sam Gilbert, look it up. Sam Gilbert was involved with his players in a way that mimics what we see today. The amount of money that was changing hands, what he did for players, whether it was flying them someplace, taking care of certain things for them, money, food, whatever they needed, it was taken care of.
This has been going on as long as there have been college basketball gyms and pride and money, right, involved, period.
Well, you know what? Ever since you go back to UCLA Houston at the Houston Astrodome, when that thing got put on TV, every shoe company out there said, wait a second. Everybody out there who has a television set watched that game. Like, it wasn't just about being at the game. It was that we at first we thought, oh, wow, that many people to see a basketball game? No. What really happened was that many people tuned in to see a basketball game. And all of a sudden, it just started to grow where we want Nike shoes to be on. We want Converse shoes to be on TV. Well, then you add HD to it. And the shoe companies get even better. The apparel companies get even better at putting their logo out there and showcasing their designs. So it really is television. And I don't have a problem with it because that's what I do for a living. It's just that there's money involved in the sport. Players have values. These universities have values to these apparel companies, and that's how it's always going to be. I think if you want to fix anything, you've got to look at what happens over the course of the summer. That is AAU basketball. You've got to clean up grassroots if you ever want to correct college basketball. Because college basketball, it's a capitalistic machine. Good luck stopping it where it's at. You just got to try to clean it up from the grassroots level.
And everybody, every coach at every school is in the fryer to graduate kids, keep them, off drugs, away from guns, away from girls, away from problems. Oh, and then, by the way, they have to win, from Rutgers on. No matter where you are, the pressure is on there to keep a job, and you have to get the best kids. The kids have to go out and play, right?
Absolutely. You have to get the best kids that fit your system, though, and that's what it comes down to. I think the best coaches know how to do that, and the best coaches are going to continue to figure out how to do that. And that might not be a one-and-done kid. It might be a kid that you got to develop.
Hey, man, always a pleasure to talk basketball with you. Rest up, travel easy. It's just the beginning of a long road. I'll be bugging you down the line. We'll talk again, I'm sure, before the new year. Great to hear you. Great to see you. We'll be watching the Big Ten Network. Thanks for coming on, John.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
You got it, John Crispin. He is BTN. John Crispin out on Twitter as well as at the Big Ten Network. You can learn more about what he does at Crispin Basketball. That's CRISPIN. He's a pretty good basketball player, too, if you remember. You can find me out at the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper delivers to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. Don't forget about our tech service as well. Any breaking news is going to happen first, gets sent directly to your mobile device the second it happens. And, of course, we're trying to figure out if Danny Woodhead's getting on the field on Sunday at Lambeau Field. If he is, You'll find out first. All brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis is here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. Dennis Colatzos and Coons Ford powering up the SSV on WNST. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Nasty@WNST.net is my email. Same email it's ever been. Toss me a note. Say hello. Hope you had fun at the CJ Mosley event. How about that? We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.